welcome into another edition of Three True Values. I'm your host, James Fletcher, back with you after last week we could not record. If you follow me on Twitter, I did put out a message. Basically, whatever this sickness that everyone is getting around here, and I know that there's a bunch of stuff going around, whatever it was, it hit me. I could not speak, so I tried to record for you guys. Middle of the first segment, my voice was already raspy, and then it was gone entirely. So we're back this week, and what I had planned originally was to kind of touch on a lot of the things that we didn't get to touch on last week. But as always, when you have a podcast or when you're talking about college basketball, things change very quickly in the news cycle. So we have a very newsy episode of the podcast today. We're going to talk about a lot of things going on. Mikey Williams, his latest, along with his friend JJ Taylor, what's their situation at Memphis. We have got Terrence Shannon updates at Illinois. We've got a story about Pop Isaacs at Texas Tech that has been going on, and plenty more for us to get through. So we're just going to take things one thing at a time and talk through them here on the show today. When we come back, we'll do a very short second segment. We'll talk a little bit about what I'm up to, what I think about some of the things that the AP voters have done in the past couple of weeks, and a little bit of bracketology. Come back in the third segment. As always, we will get you the games of the week. So that's the lineup here on Three True Values, the first episode of 2024 because of illness last week. But here we are, and we're talking college basketball. College football wrapped up last night, and now we can fully focus our attention. It's going to be great. I hope everybody is locked in. They're ready to go. If you have been listening to the podcast all season, I appreciate it. Now is the time, the perfect opportunity to go share it with friends who maybe they want to focus on football until it wraps up. Now, let them come here and talk a little bit of college hoops with us. Now, we're going to start today's show, as I mentioned, very newsy. Want to talk first about Mikey Williams and JJ Taylor planning to enter the transfer portal. That news came out yesterday from Eric Bossy, has since been confirmed by the program itself. And interesting, I will say. I think that's the least you can say in this whole situation. Of course, Mikey Williams faced felony gun charges after allegedly firing a gun into a moving vehicle. That delayed his enrollment at the University of Memphis, at least his arrival to the campus, I should say. He did enroll in online classes. He was listed as a member of the program. His friend JJ Taylor, who had committed there as well, he showed up. He started the season with the Tigers. He was lower ranked than Mikey was, still a top 100 player. But on this Memphis team, which is filled with veterans, filled with transfer portal guys, he was not getting a lot of playing time early on. Well, JJ Taylor then gets suspended from the program. He was not around for a little while. Video emerges. He is now with Mikey Williams. They are training together. That started to spark the rumors. People started talking, okay, what's the plan here? Why are they together but not with the team? Mikey Williams, of course, the latest in his legal situation is that he will do community service, go through various programs in order to avoid jail time and get this charge downgraded. I think there had been some talk about whether Mikey would enroll either this year or if he would wait until next year and try to be part of that Memphis roster. It appears now that he's going to look at his options. I don't blame the kid, and this is the whole thing. We talk about the transfer portal. I'm all for the ability to go look at your options. And so if Mikey Williams feels like that's the best thing for him, JJ Taylor, clearly, I think that is probably the best thing for him. I don't know about this point in the season, going ahead and doing that. But if you're suspended, might as well go ahead and do it. I think where this gets a little bit, where this becomes a deeper conversation is this whole idea that Penny Hardaway went out of his way to protect and to give Mikey Williams every opportunity. He made sure that he was enrolled in classes during this time period while he was going to court. Penny Hardaway basically lined everything up so that he would take any criticism. And there was a lot of criticism from Memphis fans, from people around the country. Why are you standing by this guy? He has gun charges. You cannot bring that into your program. There were questions of whether Mikey Williams would ever show up to the program. Obviously, now those look to be founded, but I think more than whether he showed up or not showing up, the timing of this is interesting, that right after he gets off, not completely, but he has this burden lifted off of him of these potentially serious charges up to 25, 30 years in jail. Now he's going into the transfer portal immediately after this coach stood by him. And so it's a really difficult thing to think about. Should he have stood by Penny Hardaway, or at least handled this in a slightly different manner? Like, what is the way to solve this? And I don't know. I'm not trying to talk negatively about how Mikey handled this. I'm not trying to talk negatively about how Penny handled this. What's in the past is in the past. They handled it how they handled it. I just think it's an interesting discussion because I've heard from a lot of different people on this in the past 24 hours since the news broke, and I've heard just about every opinion you can hear. I mean, people who think, like, it's good for the program. Good, he's gone. People who think, how could he do that to Penny? People who think, why did Penny do this if he was just going to do this? Was the outcome regardless. I mean, the list goes on and on. And I'm not fully sure how I feel that I would handle the situation from Penny or Mikey's perspective. So something that I think people should really consider, I know feelings, emotions get strongly linked when we talk about sports, when we talk about our favorite teams. If that's you, take a step back and remember that these are two people, and in the bigger picture, there were a lot of people involved in this entire process who are trying to do what's best for them. And sometimes that doesn't all line up. And it's okay sometimes for it to not line up. I think both sides will end up coming out just about the best they can from this situation after what happened at the start. So I don't think that it really hurt anyone in the long run. I think that Penny, in the eyes of some, should not have been involved for as long as he was, but it ends up not really hurting him in any way, his reputation. It doesn't, and if Mikey doesn't show up to campus, well, now the concerns about why would you bring that guy to campus, those are gone. And if you're Mikey, because you were enrolled in these classes, you can enter the transfer portal. You can do a lot of different things that would have been more difficult had he not been in classes enrolled at a school. So in the end, it's over. All right, he's in the transfer portal. JJ Taylor as well. Memphis still a stacked roster. I mean, that team still is, in my eyes, an underdog, contender, dark horse to make the Final Four. The next piece of news that we are going to talk about here on the show today is Terrence Shannon at Illinois. We had discussed serious charges were brought against him from an incident occurring earlier this season. He was away from the team. He was suspended during the investigation. There was a warrant out for his arrest. Well, now the latest is there is a group considering a restraining order against the university, which would then make it so that they cannot prevent him from competing for the Fighting Illini. Now, this is a deep one too. All right, so we're hitting some hard stories today. Terrence Shannon arrested, now out for this incident which occurred. Obviously suspended from the team, and I think rightfully so. But as is the case in the American justice system, you are innocent until proven guilty. So until this goes to trial, they cannot fully withhold him. Now, there are different things in the student code of conduct that they can use. There's a lot in there that they can use to say, regardless of whether you've been charged with this crime yet, convicted of this crime yet, we can still withhold either classes or your ability to compete for the university based on what those actions and what those accusations did to our reputation. So they're within their rights to do this. But as we've seen across, and this has become an interesting thing in sports, that it's like you see all the time, people were filing for restraining orders in sports. Very strange. But what it essentially does is, because the university, they're a state institution, they are bound by the laws of that state, that county, that the country. And so if he can go file a restraining order against the school, it would be then temporarily put in place until a hearing could happen. And what would then happen is Terrence Shannon and his lawyers could draw out this process, in theory, through the end of the season, because a lot of times these investigations, they take time. It might be 6 months, it might be a year, it might be 2 years. I mean, that's the fact of the matter, is trials don't just happen. It's not like he's going to get whatever outcome from the case or from this restraining order anytime soon. So for Terrence Shannon, he feels he can finish the season if he files a restraining order against the school. They can no longer have a say until a judge rules on whether he can compete or not. Now, the next level of this is, okay, he's brought back in. That doesn't mean the coach has to play him. Brad Underwood does not have to play Terrence Shannon. He does not have to allow Terrence Shannon back on the team, because that's different. What a coach does with his roster is not bound by a court, the same way that the university is. So there's still a lot of people who would have to sign off on Terrence Shannon playing. It just would take the university president and the board of trustees out of the picture. That's all this does. It does not mean he would be allowed to return. It does not mean that he would be playing in spite of what his coach or athletic director feel about the situation. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in this restraining order. What does the judge rule? What does the coach decide? What does the athletic program decide? A lot that goes into this. So we'll see how it plays out over the next couple of weeks. But Illinois, they are a contender, and so this hanging over them is a major storyline. And I know that it's a very sensitive subject, how you bring up the intersection between what he did and what this team is this season. But I think that it is a delicate balance that you have to talk about both, because it's not fair to every other player on that roster to only speak about this team in the context of what he did. It's also not fair to the victims, the alleged victims, or to really moral standards, in my opinion, to only talk about what this team does on the floor. Because there is always an asterisk next to it, especially if he's playing. I think things become a lot dicier in how we view this team. So we will continue to follow that. The next piece of news that we will hit on here as we keep rolling through is Pop Isaacs, accused of assaulting a minor during a road trip with Texas Tech. Now, he is still playing for the team, actually, amid these allegations. He put up 21 points in their last game, dealt with fan backlash, and this is going to happen. There's going to be fan backlash. Same thing with Shannon if he plays throughout the rest of the year. The fans are going to take it upon themselves, especially on the road, to make their feelings known on these players still being out there. So criminal investigations involving 2 different point guards of potential NCAA tournament teams are now ongoing. And one of them is playing, one of them is not, but is filing to attempt to get his eligibility back. This is not what you want to be talking about across college basketball at all. We want to be talking about on the court. We want to be talking about the top prospects, the big performances, the upsets. That's what we love about college basketball. But unfortunately, this is also part of it. These are people, they have lives going on, people who make mistakes, people who then have to deal with the consequences of those mistakes, those actions that they decided to commit. So when we come back on the other side, we will kind of flip the page. We will talk a little bit more basketball here on January the 9th. So come back on the other side. We'll keep things rolling on Three True Values. Welcome back in. Here we are, Three True Values, coming at you from an alternate location this week. Do want to talk about in the second segment, just briefly, what I've been up to and what I've thought about some things the past couple of weeks, some thoughts I've had that I just got to get off my chest about college basketball and about everything going on. First of all, as you guys know, I work at On3. Follow me on Twitter, follow On3, download the app, check out the website. Wherever you get your news, you can find On3. Be sure to check out my most recent work, as I've started doing, in addition to some occasional column work surrounding college basketball, different issues. I recently wrote one about Zach Edey's draft stock, how it relates to the success of a certain archetype of center in the NBA this season, particularly how Rudy Gobert and the Minnesota Timberwolves, being the top team in the NBA, has drastically improved the chances that Zach Edey is a first-round draft pick. So if you're interested in draft stock, how these things play out, what I think about what Zach Edey can be in the NBA, go ahead, check that out. Also, predicting the AP poll each Sunday night, I'm putting out a column. It predicts how the AP voters will vote on Monday morning before things come out in the afternoon. So if you're interested, you want to get a head start, see where teams potentially could be come the next day, you can check that out. And then Bracketology. That's right. I am now On3's bracketologist. Been updating the algorithm each day, running through all the results and trying to get you guys the best picture of what the NCAA tournament field is going to look like. So a lot of research has gone into that. Please go check it out, share it, make sure that you are staying up to date each time it is released. I believe this week there is none. Next week, though, there will be another updated version released. You can go check out my original one from last Thursday. It's up on the website right now. That all brings me to, I've been very locked in. Obviously, you guys know I watch college basketball just about every day. But I've been extra locked into some of the details, some of the things that go into AP voting, some of the things that go into bracketology, the metrics. All that has been at the top of my mind for quite a while now as I prepare for these columns to launch. And this week, one really just struck me as unbelievable. I cannot understand, I cannot fathom, with everything I've been looking at, how Florida Atlantic is still in the top 25 of the AP poll. They've lost to Bryant. They've lost to Charlotte. They have an additional loss that's escaping me at the time, but quad three at best losses. Some of them quad four. Will for sure be quad four. How are they a top 25 team? They haven't. I mean, the Arizona win, yes. Like, we can't just hold this Arizona win, though, and be like, look, they beat Arizona, so they're a top 25 team. That was almost a month ago now. And in addition to that, it's the only evidence we have that they look like a top 25 team. It's the only time they've looked like they were one of the best teams in the country. They've looked like a bad team several times throughout the course of this year. So what do we do with that? Well, I don't think they're a top 25 team. I don't think that they're a top 4 or top 5 seed team right now in the NCAA tournament. I think that they can work their way back, but they're not going to be a top 4 seed. I'm going to call that right now. I do not think they get a regional hosting position because there's just not enough left to build on the resume. Memphis is really their only great opportunity. Now, SMU looks good in a lot of the analytics, so that one will be a good opportunity for them to boost the resume some. But in terms of like changing how we view FAU, playing Memphis is about all they have left on the schedule. So they better capitalize on that opportunity if they're going to get back in the mix at all for even a 5 seed, in my opinion. Now, outside of that, I think that we've seen quite a few fan bases get frustrated, especially over the past couple of weeks. Of first, it was Memphis. I've seen Auburn frustrated recently. Um, a couple others in these past couple of weeks, but frustration with like, okay, what else are we supposed to do to move up? And I think a lot of times it is just that voters are set in how they view things, and they're not going to come off of it until there is clear evidence that they should flip their opinion. So you're not going to see and Auburn, who was not in the top 25 to start the season, crack the top 25 until they make it obvious. And you know what? They beat an Arkansas team by 30 points on the road, an Arkansas team that has looked horrendous so far. They're off the bubble now. Like they not looking at an NCAA tournament berth. I don't think they make it. They would have to drastically change how they're playing to make the NCAA tournament at this point. But at the same time, Auburn is getting this huge boost out of beating them. Why is that? Maybe because Arkansas was ranked very highly at the start of the season. Auburn, by beating them, in the minds of these voters, a lot of the voters, has beaten someone of value. Regardless of how they've played this season, they still have value because of the name and what they remember about that team coming into the season. I think there's a lot of that goes on in this voting. And so as we continue to watch the season play out, just remember that the AP Top 25 does not determine in any way the NCAA tournament bracket. Look no further if you want some evidence of that, of Texas inside the top 25. They're on the bubble right now. They need to build their resume through Big 12 play in order to get back into on the right side of the bubble, or make sure that they're on the right side of the bubble, I should say. So a lot to go through there. I hope you guys follow along with my work. I appreciate all of it, from here to my writing, everything in between. Appreciate all of the support each and every week and each year as we move into the new year. When we come back on the other side, we will do the games of the week and get you out of here. Welcome back in. Here we are with the games of the week. Just briefly, we're going to run with tonight, Tuesday night. We're going with Baylor against BYU, a ranked showdown in the Big 12. We're going to have plenty of those throughout the year with how stacked that conference is this season. Then tomorrow, I'm watching Marquette and Butler. Butler, a bubble team because of their strong play in non-conference portion of the schedule. Marquette, they've hit a little skid here. Can they bounce back the right direction, or do things keep going sour for the Golden Eagles? On Thursday, now this is going to be a big one, we're watching Michigan State and Illinois. Michigan State looked like they had figured things out, and then last game, a disaster. Tom Izzo goes in on analytics, which doesn't quite make sense because analytics are the only thing keeping them in the NCAA tournament picture right now. So strange battle to pick, to be mad at analytics when they're actively helping you, because your team is not good right now. But the analytics still say that your program is. That's why you're still on the bubble, still in the picture. Maybe don't attack the thing that's helping you out, Tom Izzo. It's just another sign that he is struggling with the new era of college basketball, that he just doesn't like it. Like he does not like what college basketball is. He loves coaching. I get that, but he does not like college basketball anymore. That's for sure. On Friday, we do not have any ranked teams playing, but that doesn't mean we don't have good basketball, because we've got Nevada and Boise State. Nevada still 14-1. They're on the right side of the bubble right now, so look for them to continue building their NCAA tournament resume this week. Then on Saturday, we've got a loaded schedule, and we're going to go with Kansas and Oklahoma. A top 10 showdown this week between the Jayhawks and the Sooners. The Sooners, the big surprise of the year, flying up the boards into that top 10 from unranked. Kansas, they dropped from number 2 to number 3. The voters moved Houston ahead of them with their undefeated record. Houston, the last undefeated team in the country, by the way. Then on Sunday, we're going to go with, and this is not a deep schedule, there's not a ton here, but we're going to go with Memphis and Wichita State. A little bit of a rivalry that's developed since they've been in the same conference, but a chance to see what Memphis looks like and add to their resume, continue to win games. And then on Monday, we'll wrap up the week with Villanova and Marquette. Yes, we're going to watch Marquette twice this week, but it's because the Big East is good basketball. And this Villanova team, they need a win. Marquette's struggling. Can they capitalize and start to build that resume? Find some consistency. That's what Villanova needs. They need to be consistent. Can they do that? Let's find out throughout the rest of the season. I'm James Fletcher. This has been 3 True Values. Thank you once again for tuning in. We'll be back next week, hopefully in our normal studio, talking to you guys about all things college basketball.